Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, friction between the United States and the Palestinian Authority is escalating after PA leader Mahmoud Abbas launched a scathing, unprecedented verbal attack against David Friedman, the American ambassador to Israel. Abbas called U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy the son of a dog and a settler for defending the rights of the Jewish people to build in their historical homeland. Friedman responded by questioning whether the slur could be qualified as political discourse or a form of anti-Semitism. U.S. Special Middle East Envoy Jason Greenblatt blasted Abbas for what he called the highly inappropriate insults and said the time has come for the PA boss to choose between hateful rhetoric or concrete efforts to lead his people to peace.
The Abbas attack came after Ambassador Friedman slammed the failure of the Palestinian Authority to condemn recent Arab terror attacks in Israel. 32-year-old Adiel Coleman, an Israeli father of 4, was stabbed to death by a knife-wielding Palestinian in Jerusalem's Old City. The assailant was neutralized by a police officer stationed nearby who had raced to the scene. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat blamed the violence directly on the PA for its continued incitement and glorification of terror. And in a separate attack, 2 young IDF soldiers, Natanel Kahlani and Ziv Daos, were killed when a terrorist rammed his car into a group of Israeli troops. 2 others were left with moderate to serious injuries. The Islamic Jihad terror faction welcomed the murders of the Jewish servicemen as a natural right of the Palestinian people.
Returning now to the fiery Abbas speech, during which the PA leader also blamed the Islamist Hamas group for the recent attempted assassination of Palestinian Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah in Gaza. Abbas then threatened to end reconciliation efforts with his bitter terrorist rivals. Rancor between Hamas and Abbas's Fatah faction has been rising since the convoy transporting Hamdallah and Palestinian Security Chief Majid Faraj was targeted by a roadside bomb on March 13th. Both men escaped injury and death. The 2 Palestinian groups have tried for years to come to an accommodation over running the Gaza Strip, but have repeatedly failed to implement deals, mainly brokered by Egypt.
The latest Gallup poll shows that American public support for Israel has never been higher. 74% of the U.S. population view Israel favorably. This complements other findings that 71% feel unfavorably toward the Palestinian Authority. From a partisan perspective, that pro-Israel support is even higher, given that a whopping 87% of Republicans sympathize more with Israel than the Palestinians. And it's particularly interesting to note that just 16% of those surveyed now voice no opinion, which is the lowest recorded number since Gallup began this poll 30 years ago. The company concluded that these numbers show that the U.S. is staunchly in Israel's corner and that more Americans are taking a firm stance on the dispute than ever before. Only 27% of Americans believe that Washington should place greater diplomatic pressure on Israel to resolve the conflict, while nearly twice as many, a full 50%, think that force should be brought down on the Palestinians.
Israeli Defense Forces destroyed 2 more Hamas terror tunnels built for cross-border attacks. Army engineers used a new technique to render one passageway permanently inoperable by filling it with an unremovable compound. Another tunnel was demolished in a bombing campaign by the Israel Air Force. That raid also destroyed additional Hamas targets in central Gaza and was in response to the placement of several IEDs along the border by Arab terrorists. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the time has come for the international community to realize that financial assistance to Gaza is being buried underground, and that instead of using the funds on welfare, housing, or improving the lives of Palestinians, Hamas spends the money on terror tunnels, bunkers, rockets, and weapons for use against innocent Israelis.
As previously reported by Israel Now News, U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to withhold further funding from the Palestinians in the wake of Ramallah's rejection of American recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital and its refusal to join Washington-led peace talks with Jerusalem. The U.S. also froze $125 million in aid to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinians, although now the world body has found a way to circumvent that American pressure. $100 million in pledges were just drummed up from dozens of donor countries at a conference in Rome co-chaired by the foreign ministers of Jordan, Sweden, and Egypt. And meanwhile, even though Gaza residents have been demonstrating for the continuation of what they claim is urgently needed financial help, reports just surfaced detailing the further squandering of money by senior Palestinian officials. The Jerusalem Post ran an exclusive detailing a more than $14,000 bill that PA leaders racked up at a five-star hotel in Baltimore with room service charges, including champagne.
Israeli authorities indicted an employee of the French consulate in Jerusalem just hours after a gag order was lifted on his February 15th arrest by Israel's Shin Bet domestic security agency. 23-year-old Romain Franck was arrested along with a Palestinian guard at the consulate and 7 other suspects for smuggling at least 70 pistols and 2 assault rifles from Gaza into the Palestinian Authority. Franck allegedly used diplomatic vehicles to circumvent Israeli border security in return for monetary payoffs. There's been an alarming spike in anti-Semitism across Europe, which often accompanies the rise of populist right-wing parties. Recent studies show that more than 93% of violent crimes against Jews are linked to far-right extremism. The AFP Alternative for Germany party, which is allegedly affiliated with neo-Nazism, heads the opposition of the country's new government elected in September. Moreover, a new poll shows that if balloting was held today, the AFP would outperform the center-left Social Democrats. The situation is also deteriorating in the Netherlands, where vandalism against the Jewish community has increased by 40%, representing a 10-year high. And Austria, Italy, and the Czech Republic have been rocked by a wave of anti-Semitic demagoguery as more and more xenophobic and racist parties gain popularity.
In related news, far-right French leader Marine Le Pen has declared that her National Front Party will be renamed the National Rally in a bid to shed its own association with anti-Semitism. Le Pen admitted the current name is a psychological barrier for many voters and that the rebranding could facilitate the formation of more political alliances in the party's pursuit of greater influence. Efforts to ditch the faction's toxic past may not be successful, though. A recent poll revealed that 63% of French citizens believe that the National Front would present a threat to democracy if it ever came to power.
Several rare letters penned by Albert Einstein were recently auctioned off in the Israeli capital. One bidder paid $103,000 for a 1928 note in which the renowned physicist outlined ideas for his third stage of the theory of relativity. Another item on the auction block was a 72-year-old English language letter of encouragement that Einstein sent to an American World War II veteran who aspired to be a scientist. It fetched $6,100. That's also the exact amount that was paid for a message sent in Einstein's native German language to a female Italian scientist. The recipient apparently turned down Einstein's October 1921 offer of a visit because she was too shy to meet with such a famous person.
Residents of the coastal Israeli city of Haifa were just treated to the impressive sight of the USS Iwo Jima aircraft carrier docking into port. As the 843-foot-long amphibious assault ship was brought to shore with the aid of 3 tugboats, hovercraft emerged as part of a drill. 2,000 American sailors and soldiers aboard the vessel just participated in the massive joint U.S.-Israeli 2018 Juniper Cobra military exercise. It wasn't all work and war drills, though. During their 4-day visit, the crew members also enjoyed tours throughout the Holy Land.
Israel sent 20 tons of food to refugees affected by the civil war in South Sudan as part of its global outreach to relieve suffering in other nations. A group of around 50 grateful women in one remote village greeted the Israeli aid with singing and dancing. The African nation has been struggling with a severe humanitarian crisis in recent years and is now considered one of the world's worst disaster areas. Israel is not only a major donor of foreign aid, but is also advancing many building projects in South Sudan. And the Jewish state is now providing support to Papua New Guinea in the aftermath of a devastating earthquake that shook the Pacific island nation a few weeks ago.
Thousands of Christian visitors have flocked to Israel to celebrate the Easter holiday. Worshippers mark the start of Holy Week by attending Palm Sunday processions in Jerusalem. Many wave palm fronds and branches while chanting hymns. Clergymen and members of local scout troops escort pilgrims and tourists as they retrace the footsteps of Jesus down the Mount of Olives and into the Old City. The observance of Easter coincides with the upcoming Passover holiday. Yochanan tells us more.
That's right, Aaron. Jews around the world are now preparing for Pesach, which begins at sundown this coming Friday. The week-long biblical festival commemorates the leading of the Israelites out of Egyptian slavery to freedom by God, as told in the book of Exodus. According to standard biblical chronology, the event would have taken place around 1300 years before the Common Era. The Jewish people also link the holiday with their exile from the land of Israel by the Romans. Jews prayed to God for 2,000 years for their return to the Holy Land in fulfillment of the closing prayer of the Passover Seder to celebrate the holiday next year in Jerusalem. And just as God saved the Jews from Pharaoh, the Jewish people returned to Israel, where they have their own state and military, ensuring the freedom to practice Judaism without the fear of persecution.
We here at Israel Now News wish all of our viewers a wonderful Passover holiday.
And a very happy Easter.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful sunny day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Moshe Levran. He's the export manager of Tweedoplast. Moshe, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is Tweedoplast.
Tweedoplast is a company that make by injection molding all the accessories for the HVAC business, means air conditioning. In the United States, you will call it furnace. So all the grills, diffusers, it's made by us from ABS plastic, and we have another company which called Rollbit, which we make all sorts of smart electronics, like the smart house, that we can control temperature in each room, saving energy, all that. The company it's a private owned. Shoshana and Israel Twito is the owners, and here it's a nice story. Israel actually was a refugee from Tunisia. His father was, I'm talking before 47, his father was a big Zionist for Israel, and when he felt that the government is putting the knife very close to his neck, so he took the family and they ran and made Aliyah to Israel. Unfortunately, the British caught them and they put him in a camp in Cyprus. He was 4 years old. Only after 1948, which we had independence, so they came to Israel with bare hands, no language, no job, nothing. And Israel, after he raised a little bit, he made the decision, which is a revolution decision. He said, my name is Israel, I will grow with the state of Israel, and I will do only good thing. And only one thing, Israel didn't finish high school. He didn't went to university, but this guy have 120 worldwide patents registered. Every day, this guy comes with a new patent, with a new product. Now, the product are not copy of other product. It's really brand new product that make revolution in the HVAC industry.
What's interesting about Tweedoplast is actually that it's in Barkan, it's in Samaria, it's what they call the settlements, yet it's a booming business. Why is the location so important?
Before, the factory was in Petah Tikva, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv. But in the 1970s, the big Russian immigration came to Israel, something around 1 million, and the government of Israel asked manufacturers to move their factories to Barkan in order to provide jobs to the people in Ariel, the Russian immigration. That's what Israel did. He moved his factories and he built it in Barkan. Then after a while he said, why only the Russians and the Israelis? I will employ also Palestinians. I will give them vision. I will give them future. So we start to employ Palestinians.
So you work in Barkan where Jews and Arabs are working together in peace and harmony. Why is it so important that you're working there and bringing these two communities together?
Very important thing is peace. Peace will create not by our leaders, not from our side, not from their side. The peace will be created by economic, but working together, by opening factories, support them, that Palestinian Israelis will work together in order for them to have a vision, a future for their kids, better clothing, to have a really nice salary, like the Israelis.
They say that the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanction, if that they had their way, they would shut down companies like yours. Why would that be the biggest obstacle to peace?
You know, I will ask BDS, do you know my workers? Do you know Romani, Muhammad, Abdallah? Do you know them? Do actually you know where is Israel? The purpose of BDS is only to destroy Israel. There's no chance. Many people try to destroy us, and we are here, and we will be here. Now, when the Palestinian, my workers, hear that they are going to boycott our products, they came to me and they said, Moshe, what we will do? We will not have jobs. You will fire us. Do what I will do. I have no problem. If we'll close the company, which will not happen, but let's say it will happen, I will go to my kibbutz, I will milk cows, and have a job. They don't have where to go. They didn't build factories in the West Bank in order to provide them job. And let's say we pay them $1,700 per month. If they will get a job in the West Bank, they may get $200. Can you live with $200? No way. With my $1,700, they have a better education for their kids, they have a better food, they have a better houses, they have quality of life. That's why the BDS don't know what they are talking. I'm making more for the Palestinians. 100,000 Palestinians walking every day and crossing the borders of Israel to work here. A Palestinian worker, the head of the family, sometimes feed 10 mouths beside his kids. They have his father and his mother. Now you figure out 100,000 Palestinians feed 10 mouths every day. You figure out how much Palestinians we feed, we support. Is BDS supporting them? No.
Moshe, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Go to the streets, support us, support the Israeli product, because we need you guys. We need your support, because by giving us orders, by giving us work, we give jobs to the Israelis and to the Palestinians. So please help us and fight against BDS that they don't know what they are talking.
Thank you, Moshe, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, world chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Even before the creation of the State of Israel, Keren HaYesod worked with the Friends of Israel to bring home our sons and daughters. Watch this amazing story about how together we saved a Jewish community from Iraq.
In the wake of World War II and humanity's darkest hour, the wheels began to turn dramatically towards Jewish independence. The impossible Jewish dream, sustained through centuries of persecution, was becoming reality. In 1947, the United Nations took a historic vote to establish a Jewish state. But Jews who had lived peacefully for centuries in neighboring Arab countries became a target for violent retribution, especially the 150,000 proud Jews of Iraq. They faced arrest, violence, and a grim threat to their lives simply for being Jews. In response, the Zionist movement launched its most daring operation. Shlomo Hillel, who would later become an Israeli government minister and world chairman of Keren HaYesod UIA, was recruited to plan an operation which would save Iraqi Jews and bring them back to their ancient homeland. Against all odds, Hillel oversaw every detail of a secretive airlift. He started by planning a clandestine operation to rescue a first group of 50 young Jews from under the noses of both the Iraqis and the British authorities in the land of Israel, who ruthlessly limited Jewish immigration. Hillel found 2 American pilots with a Curtiss Commando aircraft, Leo Vessenberg and his co-pilot, Mike. They gave their names to what later became known as Operation Michaelberg.
הכביש שיוצא מבגדד, מצד אחד יש בו שדה התעופה, מצד שני מחנה צבאי גדול. כלומר, שאני פה צריך להיזהר מאוד, יש גדר בכל שדה תעופה. אז ראינו באיזה מקום שהגדר קצת חלשה. באמת מגיע המטוס, מתחיל להניע את הפרופלרים ברעש נורא, והיום מדליק את הפרוז'קטורים כדי לעבר את המגדל הפיקוח שבתוך שדה התעופה, ואנחנו מתחילים להעלות את האנשים.
The pilots then took off and aimed the nose of their Curtiss Commando aircraft westward, home to Zion.
אז ברגע שעזבנו את שדה התעופה של בגדד בשלום, הייתה כמובן הרגשת הנחת רווחה, יצאנו בשלום. אבל האמת שזה עדיין לא הסוף. שכבו והחזיקו אחד בשני בידיים, ואנחנו עוברים את רמת הגולן, ופתאום אני רואה את הכנרת כחול, ואני כבר רואה מרחוק את יבניאל, ורואה 2 מדורות, ואז ישר הטייס בלי לעשות סיבובים בין 2 המדורות האלה נוחת.
Within minutes, the new immigrants had been spirited away to local communities, many pioneered by Keren HaYesod, to begin their new lives in the home of their ancestors. The 2 pilots were American Christian aviators whose extraordinary act of courage in carrying out their mission is a reflection of their own personal dedication to bring the Jewish people back to their homeland as envisioned by biblical prophecy. The dedication to this vision has been shared by Friends of Israel around the world from that time to this day. Operation Michaelberg is not only a tale of incredible daring, it paved the way for most of the Iraqi Jews to return home. From 1951 to 1952, around 120,000 were flown to Israel in Operations Ezra and Nehemiah, named after the biblical prophets of ancient Babylon. With the help of Keren HaYesod, these immigrants built new lives. They became leaders of Israeli industry, politics, and the military. Operation Michaelberg also demonstrated that Jews would return to Zion, whatever the circumstances. As the Jewish state celebrates its 70th year, Israel can be proud that time and again, it has plucked Jews from danger to safety. All of this can be tracked back to Shlomo Hillel and 2 brave American pilots. Today, many more Jews dream of returning to their homelands to play their own part in the miracle which is the State of Israel. Keren HaYesod is at the heart of these efforts. Jeremiah promised, "Your children will return to their borders." With the help of just $70 per month to mark Israel's 70th birthday, this prophecy can be fulfilled.
Join Keren HaYesod in celebrating Israel's 70th anniversary by donating $70 a month to help fund Aliyah. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
For a quarter of a century now, since the founding of the Palestinian Authority in the aftermath of the Oslo Accords, Palestinian leaders have paid Palestinian terrorists for killing Jews. Palestinian leaders have paid the families of terrorists who killed Jews on a sliding scale. If you kill one Jew, you get a certain amount of money. If you kill 2 Jews, you get more money. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Jews, you get even more money. If you're sent for prison to long periods of time, when you come out, there's a job waiting for you. There's a house waiting for you. You probably have a bride waiting for you as well. All this is done with money. And not just any money, money from donor nations to the Palestinian Authority, above all, the United States of America. This was an egregious situation that continued for so many years until the murder of one American, a Christian American, not a Jewish American, a veteran of the Iraq War, a graduate of West Point, an extraordinary young man named Taylor Force. He was traveling in Tel Aviv, actually not far from my house. I remember seeing the police cars there, when a Palestinian terrorist attacked him with a knife and killed him. And it was the murder of this wonderful young American man that brought the insanity, the criminality of the Palestinian system to the attention of policymakers in Washington. And they began to demand justice, not just for Taylor Force, but for the hundreds and hundreds of Israelis who have been murdered by Palestinian terrorists, Israelis whose families now have to watch how those terrorists are subsidized and enriched by American tax dollars. The Taylor Force Act puts an end to that. It says unequivocally that if the Palestinian Authority continues to pay terrorists and their families, the Palestinian Authority will not get a cent of American taxpayer money. And Israel deeply welcomes and appreciates this gesture.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.